So what we're going to be doing today is doing a little practice in our sketchbook, getting ready to do a big project like this with watercolor. But before we can dive into this, we need to talk a little bit and practice drawing gems. And so you'll also see in this assignment that I have posted a document that has several examples of gems, and these are to kind of get you inspired and give you ideas. Here are some where gems kind of branch off into different directions. Some of them are kind of irregular. There is another sheet where they're very regular, like gems that have been cut. And so there's this one, and there's this one that has kind of a mix of both. And so these are ideas for you to kind of get started with. And what I want to do today is just a little exercise to do a couple of these and get some practice before we do our next project. So let's turn to the page right after our watercolor practice. We just need a plain sheet and a pencil. So to start off, I want to practice with something that's very traditional, something like a cut diamond type, something sort of like this. We're going to start out very simply though, but if you still have your straight edge that I gave you at the beginning, that would be great to use. If you have a ruler, great. I just found this straight piece of paper. Paper works too. Anything that you can find that has a straight edge that can help you draw is what you're going to need. And your pencil. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start out by drawing two line segments. One here, okay? Then I'm going to come down a little bit, and then I'm going to make one that's a little bit longer. Now I'm trying to make it so that it's the same length that is extra on each side. This side looks like it got a little long. So we're just practicing, so that's okay. If you mess up, we're just getting started here. All right, now the next thing we're going to do is draw two lines that connect those parallel lines that we just drew here and here, okay? And then I'm going to just kind of guess where the middle of this is. I'm thinking about right here. So I want to draw a line that connects at this dot. I don't need, this was just a guideline to help me figure out where the middle was. But now I'm going to connect these two edges to this point down here at the bottom. So that's kind of like our main shape. Now what I want to do is start putting in some of those facets, all those different sides. And I guess I can still use that little area right there. I want to find the middle. There'll be a point here. And then what I'm doing is I'm looking in between this edge, this little corner that I have here and here. And I want to find the middle between here and here. So I'm thinking about right there. And I'm going to go down to the bottom line and put a dot here and here. That's about the middle. And put a dot. So now we're just going to kind of connect these dots. So from the corner to the bottom dot, from the bottom dot up to that middle area. Same thing here and here. Okay. Now I'm going to take these two dots and connect them down to this bottom dot. So we're just going to draw a line and another line. Pretty simple, but we can add some more because in the end, when you make your design, you're going to want to have at least 30 shapes. And right now we've got 3, 6, 8. So we're not there yet. But with this, what we could do is I'm going to divide these sections in half. So this is about halfway between here and here. Between, let's see, about right there. That's halfway between there. Here. Here. Maybe halfway between this side and that side. And then let's skipped over that, but let me add that back. So now what we're going to do is ignore all the lines that we've drawn so far, and we're just going to connect the dots. Okay, so now we're going to add a little bit more down here, and what I want to do is find an area that's about maybe a little bit below middle, maybe about right here. I'm going to very lightly draw a line, and that's just a guideline so that I can figure out where my points are, and so they're all on the same level. I don't really need that line that I drew. I just used it as a guide to figure out where to place my dots. Now I'm going to use these dots here and these dots up here to draw a few more lines. So and from there, there's one more thing that we could do, I think, to kind of fill in this bottom area. I'm going to connect these dots up here to the bottom. The ones that I just connected to, I'm going to use those same 3 to connect down to the bottom. So we're just going to draw a straight line. Okay, and there you've got a simple little diamond shape. All right, but say you want to have something that's a little bit more irregular and not that symmetrical. This, like if we just divided a line right down the middle, it's the same on both sides. Maybe you want to kind of mix it up a little bit, like the example that I showed you at the beginning. Well, let's do an example. Okay, for the next one, you really don't need to use a ruler. You can, but since we're just practicing, I just want you to get the idea of how the structure actually works. And so what we're going to do is we're going to be overlapping crystals. So the first step is to make kind of an upside down V. Okay, and then we're going to lengthen the sides really long. So it's now the next one we're going to draw, we're going to do a few of these. This one's kind of sticking over on the side over here, kind of pointed out in the other direction. We can do another one over here. And then once I hit the side of that first one, I'm going to stop. Maybe I can put one back here. So we're just kind of overlapping them. Let's see, maybe another one over here. You know, you can kind of decide how many. Maybe just maybe one more way up here. Okay. And like with my example that I showed you, the bottom of this one is like another one going across the bottom. But sometimes, you know, crystals might have a base that is very irregular and bumpy. And so I think that for just this example, since we're just kind of sketching out an idea, that's what I'm going to do down here. So it's just kind of like a squiggly little wavy line. And then I'm going to come up here around the side and kind of do the same thing, coming around the bottom to kind of finish it out, and back up here over to the side. And then don't forget, back in between those two. Now all of these are overlapping, but you would be able to see the back right there. Okay, so that's the main structure. Now we need to do the facets on the inside. So in order to do that, there's a few ways you can do this. I'm going to start with this little one back here in the back. I'm going to take these two side points here, and I'm going to come down to a point and back up. pretty simple. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is connect the top to the bottom. Okay, and then I'm going to make a line from this bottom point and try to kind of go in the direction that the sides are going. So this is going to shift a little bit like that so that you can see these are the sides and then this is kind of the top. I'll do the same thing with this one here. Maybe I'll come down this way and up. It's, you know, kind of pointed over here on this side. It's not quite in the middle. Some of these that get larger, we can do more than just a V. You can come down and do like 2 points and then back up. So let's maybe there, there, and there. And again, we'll start at the top always to come down to that point and then this point. And then the sides will follow the edges. I'm just going to do the same thing with all of them. All right, pretty simple. Now what I want you to do is on the very back of this piece of paper, not on the next page, but on the back of this, I want you to kind of plan your idea, see what kind of gem you want to do. Keep in mind you have to have at least 30 different facets or 30 different shapes. So looking at some of these, they might look kind of cool, but they might not work for what we're doing. Like this definitely does not have enough. You can take this and then add some more to it. That's totally fine, but you can't just leave it like this because it's way too simple. You need to think in terms of 30. Now this might be a little bit too much. You don't want to go overboard, but that's why we're practicing. We're taking these ideas and kind of running with it to make it work for this project. Okay, so the other thing that I want you to do before you get started on your idea is to look at this, and I want you to notice that in between every one of these shapes is a space. So instead of drawing like we just did with lines, you're gonna have to draw and leave a little space in between. So let me show you what I would do if I was working on one. I'm gonna do an example that looks something sort of like this, a little irregular with a lot of different facets. So using that as a guide, let me put this here to the side so I can kind of look at it. I'm gonna start looking at some of these shapes. So I'm gonna start kind of up here towards the top. Okay, and there's one of my facets. Now instead of going off of that shape, I'm going to draw some lines, leaving just a little space in between that. I'm gonna draw from here. And let's see, maybe then it goes this way. And maybe this is the very, very top. So I've got a lot of little shapes up here. And then here's another one. Maybe this gets longer. I need to erase that because I want a little white area in between all of my shapes. So maybe this one comes down. Okay, so this is just an example of what one could be. Now let's see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So, you know, I could use a few more shapes. So what I could do is I could either add some down here, you know, just kind of do sort of like what I did up there at the top. I could maybe split one of these in half. You know, there's a lot of different things I can do to make my 30 shapes, but you're gonna need 30. And again, this is just a practice for what we're gonna do. We need to figure it out now before we spend some time on the big picture and the watercolor painting. So what I want you to notice is that the outside, you know, all the lines, they're not connected, but they do kind of follow together. You don't have one edge that's like sticking way out here to the side. They all kind of come together around the edge, and that there is a little space in between every single shape. They are not touching. And you try to make that shape kind of as narrow as you possibly can. So work on those two things. Please take a picture of this and post it in this assignment for the sketchbook in our Google Classroom.